Hi there, my name is Allison Fisher, and this is my video presentation. The issues facing youth today. I found that a very interesting topic. Within Chapter 10, I read a lot about different issues that face all types of youth, minority and non-minority. One issue that I'm going to start off by talking about is the victimization of young African females. Especially sexual assault is a very widespread issue. Their complaints that they've been sexually assaulted are not being taken completely seriously. Sometimes they are being taken as if the female is trying to get the boy in trouble. And this is coming from law enforcement and also school personnel. One way they have attempted to fix this issue is by implementing community policing. So law enforcement agencies are going into the neighborhoods. Police are walking around, getting to know everyone that lives in that neighborhood and trying to build some good relationships with them. This will help whenever someone has a complaint. The officer will have a personal relationship with that individual, so they'll feel like they want to handle that issue, and then the person who's reporting it is going to trust that the officer handling it is actually going to help them and not just listen to them and not do anything about it. And then when it comes to the school personnel, I read that school personnel are trying to take a more proactive approach to sexual assault cases to help them from not happening, and if they do happen, to help them resolve the issue. The next issue that I read about in Chapter 10 was the issue of homicide with youth. It affects all the youth in this country. In 2010, there's a statistic saying that 1 in 10 murders were of an individual under the age of 18, and the primary person who was the one who murdered this juvenile was their parents. It could be from many issues, from mental health issues of moms, blacking out and killing their children, just to other types of, big issues. The next one I found is creating a juvenile offender profile. This is a very hard thing to do, just because how can you, describe it as one person? Everyone's different. Every juvenile offender is a little bit different, especially because it can become a very biased profile based off of just because some juveniles are not arrested for one crime while others are. So that crime is then reported to be primarily primarily an African-American committed crime or primarily white crime, just based off who was arrested for what crime. In the book, on table 10.4, it shows a percentage distribution of arrests by race in 2014. So out of all the juveniles that are in this table, 63% of them are white, 34.5% of them are African-American, 1.4% is American Indian, and 1% are Asian juveniles. The chart shows that the white and African American juveniles take up primarily all the crimes that are there, mainly the American Indian and Asian juveniles. They only commit about 1 to maybe 2% of each type of crime. The chart also shows that white and African American youth do commit more crimes than Indian and Asian youth, as I just said. It also shows that white youth and African American youth each commit different types of crime. A good example is that white youth committed 90.3% of the DUIs of juveniles in 2014, while African American youth only committed 5.9% of those. So it just shows how one race can commit more crimes than another race, and there's tons of underlying issues and underlying factors that go into that. One of those factors is poverty. Poverty affects the youth in our country. So low-income juveniles, they're more likely to be out in public than the middle class or wealthy juveniles. That's just because they have the middle-class juveniles and wealthy juveniles have more access to indoor recreation, so they have more access to staying indoors in their family rooms or in their backyards, where low-poverty youth, they have to go outside, so they're more likely to be on the streets. I read that gang members see street corners as kind of like their living rooms, so By being on the streets, this makes the youth more vulnerable to becoming a gang member and having more run-ins with the police, causing them to commit more crimes. There is a higher potential for racial discrimination within the court processing of juveniles. This is because the judge can make a decision to either prosecute the juvenile or put the juvenile into more of a rehabilitation program. This can be based off of race, ethnicity, and gender. They're just not guilty or not guilty. So they really try to focus on rehab, but they can send certain youths to juvie. One of the programs that I found for the youth that I found very interesting was here in Phoenix. It's New Pathways for Youth. Today, New Pathways for Youth serves youth in the Phoenix, Arizona area between the ages of 12 to 21, experiencing poverty and 4 times the adversity of other youth. They could be such adversities as parents are incarcerated, they get abuse or neglect from their parents, them or their parents suffer from substance abuse, or they're a high school dropout. They do one-on-one mentoring, so they connect communities of other mentors and youth, and then based off of this, they have personal development and they create life skills retreats and workshops for the youth to help them build up some life skills that they can use in their life. And then they help them break through the self-destructive patterns so they could be from generational poverty. That's another big issue. They believe that the education, employment, and relationships can help disrupt that chronic poverty that them and their family face. And their long-term outcomes, 95% of their youth in their program graduate from high school. 90% of them go on to graduate from a secondary education, such as they either get into a trade or they go through and they graduate college. And 75% of the youth are the first in their family to go on to a secondary education. I found my information mainly through the book. So I used our book, and then the New Pathways for Youth. I searched online for youth programs for at-risk youth near me, and that was one of the ones that I really found to be impactful. And then I do think that there needs to be more outreach programs for the youth, just to help them turn their lives around and realize that being on the street isn't the only thing they can do. Crime's not their only option, and that they can do more with their own life. I hope you guys have a great rest of the semester, and that was my presentation. Bye.